What's going on, guys? Apache back with another video. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, this isn't World of Warcraft. This is a funny looking game. I don't know what it is. Why are you making a video on it? So basically, I am going to still be posting World of Warcraft videos. However, I've kind of fallen in love with a game called Teamfight Tactics. Now, it is a strategy-based game on the League of Legends client. And it turns out I'm actually pretty good at this one. I can't say that for a lot of games. But this one I'm actually kind of reaching some high elo in, so I feel like I'm kind of in a position where I can make creative and instructional content for people. So if you're not interested and you just want to see the WoW stuff, feel free to click off now. It's up to you whether you watch these or not. This is just kind of creative inspiration that I've kind of had. This is the type of video that I want to do at the moment until kind of Shadowlands drops, and then I'm going to be looking at doing that. Well, anyway, so what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to go through the Teamfight Tactics patch 10.21 notes, and then I'm going to tell you 3 compositions that I think you should play with this patch. Now, I've played a little bit of the patch, and this is kind of my predictions at least. So not everything that I'm going to say here is going to be 100% accurate. I'd like to mention also that Mortdog, one of the developers for TFT, has stated that at the end of the week, today being the 16th of October, there is going to be a B patch, probably nerfing some of the stuff that they've perhaps overtuned. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. So, if you see me look down, I've got a bunch of notes that I've kind of prepared. That way I can kind of go through this at a speed which you guys can read the changes, and I'll just tell you my experience with the changes. So before we scroll down into the actual changes, let's just have a little look at the overall tentative changes. You can pause the screen here and just have a little look before we get into some of the details. I'm going to try and go through this kind of as quickly as possible, as kind of the main part of this video is me talking about some of the compositions that you should be running. So anyway, you can pause this now, but let's move on. So first thing is the systems. Basically what they've done is they've made a couple of fate changes in the shop. They've made it so that it's basically a bit more of a refined system. I know that fates was something that already was going to be extremely hard to get right, and I feel like it's something that they've actually balanced incredibly. Main thing that we want to see here is that you are guaranteed to see at least one chosen by 2-2. So it's not kind of really rolling the dice anymore whether you'll see a fate in the first couple of PvP rounds. They're guaranteeing that you'll see it in the first couple, which is really, really cool. We're going to jump straight into traits. So let's go straight in with Adept Attack Speed Slow. So this was a trait that hasn't really been relevant for a long time. It's kind of been a little niche thing that if you ended up having Shen and Aurelia in your comp, then you got the 2 second slow. What they've done at rank 1 is they've improved that to a 2.5 second slow, which I think it isn't really much of a change. I don't think that Adept 2 is really worth branching out for unless you have those units already. So what I do think is going from 3 seconds to 4 seconds is a 1 second difference as opposed to a 0.5 second difference. This is kind of the sweet spot, I feel. You're never going to be in a situation where you're running all 4 adepts or whether you're running a Shen with a chosen adept. I think that 3 is the sweet spot, and here's why. So Divine is probably the real big top tier comp at the moment anyway. And the way it should work is that you have Shen and Aurelia in at level 7. And I'll talk about this when I talk about the comps a little bit later, but you should already have 2 Adept in your comp anyway, and the idea is that you can push level 8, add Yoni in, and then you have that 3 Adept. And that 4 second slow just buys your Divine units time to hit that Transcended status, and that's where they're going to be really, really good. It buys your carries quite a bit of time, so it's quite good. Next, moving on, Hunter bonus damage. So instead of being 175% at all levels, it's gone to 150, 175, 200, and 225. So basically, they've made it scale a lot more. I think it's pretty good. However, I don't think you should be running 2 Hunter at all. I feel like Hunter's only really going to be relevant when you have a chosen for your Hunter. So for example, a Kindred or even an Aphelios. But not too much there. Moonlight 5 now exists. It stars up the lowest 2 champions. Again, As we'll see with some of the champion changes, I think Moonlight's completely took a dive. They've gutted it. Moving on very quickly, Mystic Magic Resist, 35 to 40 at rank 1, 95 to 100 at rank 2, and 175 to 200 at rank 3. So, Mystic 2, I think, is probably pretty good. We're kind of in a meta right now where we don't have a lot of magic damage, so what I'd probably recommend when you're playing this patch is scout your lobbies. Have a look at the other 7 players, ascertain what they're playing. I'd say if you see maybe 2 or 3 AP kind of comps, then I'd probably include 2 Mystic. I wouldn't say that 4 or 6 Mystic is going to be very popular this patch, mainly because a lot of the true damage and physical damage that's evident in this patch and that's strong in this patch. Ninja AD and AP, 50, 120 at obviously ranks 1 and 4 to 50 and 150. So they haven't nerfed the bottom end of Ninja, but they have buffed the top end. So 120 to 150 is quite interesting. I can see that they're trying to give Ninja 4 some kind of identity, some kind of strength. And I quite like that. I think that Ninja is kind of hard to play late game. I think that it can be strong when you have 1, but it's going to be very hard for you to be kind of top 2 status. And I'll say that quite a lot through this video. We're kind of aiming for top 2. Shades now gain the stealth effect after the 3rd attack instead of for the 3rd attack. Additionally, now bonus damage applies every 4th attack rather than every 3rd. Now, also the Shade bonus damage has gone from 100 to 125, 325 to 400, and 650 to 750. So a numbers buff, however, the bonus damage is going to be occurring less often. So a bit of a nerf. I don't think that Shade is really good in this current meta anyway, and it doesn't really help that they've also nerfed Kayn at level 1. So not too sure about Shades at the moment. Vanguard 8 now exists. Vanguard armor 100, 250, and 500. So they haven't really changed anything for the 2 and 4 Vanguard bonus, but they have increased the armor for the Vanguards at 6 by 100, which is quite a meaningful change. Vanguard 6 would be quite good. And then 1500 for 8 Vanguards. So that's pretty ridiculous numbers in terms of armor. But what I actually think is that based on the meta, I don't really think Vanguard is that good. Main reason being is that the top comp has a lot of true damage and that kind of just cuts through the armor. If you have 1 or 2 AP comps in your lobby, then you might find it a little bit difficult to make Vanguard work. The only way I kind of see it working is if you have a reliable damage threat in there. So maybe like a Vanguard set with offensive items, maybe like a dual gauntlet or something like that. I'd see that working. But other than that, I don't think it would be that good. Moving on. So, Cultist. We want to smooth out the Cultist power curve, as currently the trait provides a large spike in one stage and then falls off significantly in the following stage. Going forward, upgrading the Cultist units will help Galio scale into the next stage of the game, while maintaining the big spike that comes with playing 6 or 9 Cultists. The change also makes it so that playing 4 or 5 Cultists, while not optimal, is not totally and completely pointless. So, each star level of your Cultist will grant Galio 12% bonus health and attack damage. So e.g. 3 1-star Cultists will grant him 36% bonus HP and AD. So as you can see, we have 3 Cultists. The base health has been reduced by 600, obviously improved by star level. And then it's been reduced from 3,800 to 1,750, 6,666 to 2,500. So they're really putting an emphasis on, for Cultists to be strong, you're not only just hitting the 6 or 9 units. Basically what you're doing is make sure you're having a 2-star or maybe even some 3 stars within that whole Cultist comp. So I feel like they've made the top end Cultist 6 or 9 harder to make good in a way. Like I feel like it's quite difficult to kind of make that work in terms of your star level. Like Galio won't scale unless you have 2-star everything and maybe a couple of 3 stars. So in that case, probably what I'd say is that Cultist early is going to be good again. I'd say if you can get like TF and Elise 2-star, then that's already 72% bonus health and bonus damage. So that is going to make your 3 Cultist Galio actually like pretty tank. So I think if you're going to go mid to late with Cultist, you need a Chosen for 6 or 9. And you also need really good items on either your Jhin or your Kalista, because they're the only real damage threats within your Cultist. I think if you kind of slap your damage on Eve or even Pike, you're inting a little bit. I feel like it has to be Kalista, has to be Jhin. As I said before, AD's really strong in this patch, so I think that that's what you should go with if you're looking for Cultist. Moving on, and this is the big one, Divine, Rework. So what's been changed is when you attack 6 times or drop below 50% health, it removes all crowd control effects and your units ascend. You take 66% reduced damage and deal 50% bonus true damage for the duration of the Ascension. Now the Ascension for 2 Divine is 4 seconds, 4 Divine 6 seconds, 6 Divine 9 seconds, and 8 Divine 13 seconds. So this is the trait that's completely running the whole patch. Divine is the best trait this patch. It is absolutely insane. If you get a Chosen Divine, you should be instantly picking it. Regardless of your items, you instantly pick Divine. Now, you should be really careful. Do not run 2 and do not run 8. The difference between 9 and 13 seconds, if you're playing Divine right, the fight should be over by 9 seconds. Same with 2. 2 doesn't really do anything. Divine's only strong when you have that 6 to 9 seconds. And basically, when you have those 4 to 6 Divine, I'd call it the sweet spot. I've played quite a bit of Divine lately, and as I'll show you later, what the comp actually looks like is pretty good. With regards to Fortune, what they've done is they've basically gutted Fortune. Like, I feel Fortune 3, some of the changes that they have here, like average gold value from 0 loss gone down to by half a gold, full gold. So they're kind of making 3 Fortune a little bit less profitable. Fortune 6, a little bit of a buff, a little bit of a nerf. Now, these Fortune changes don't actually make that much difference, but the reason that I say that they've gutted Fortune is because I feel like the meta right now really punishes you if you go Fortune. Like, Fortune is a trait where you sacrifice a lot of combat effectiveness because you don't have a combat trait. So I think that the only reason that I say this is gutted is because all of the other kind of traits got some love, and the meta is favoring those combat stats right now. And so you having a bunch of gold in your pocket doesn't really affect that. Like, your Fortune units, especially if you're Fortune 6, you're not going to have the combat effectiveness that, say, a 6 Divine would have. So in terms of the traits, kind of the main thing that we're really looking at is this Ninja one. For me, is quite interesting. The Mystic Magic Resist buff is quite nice. The Adept buff is really nice. And then, yeah, the Cultist thing is okay. And then, obviously, the Divine is absolutely huge. So, let's go through the champions. Now, what they've done is changed Diana's orbs to be nerfed when she's 4-star. Again, Moonlight's just going worse and worse and worse. At least health restore and attack, 40, 80, 120 to 40, 80, 160. So they've only changed her at 3-star. Now, I think this change, you shouldn't get baited by it. Don't go Elise 3. Now, the main reason I say don't go Elise 3 is we just established that Cultist is good early. Like, a lot of people are going Cultist early. So the fact that everyone's going it early means that you won't hit Elise 3. And the fact of the matter is, you shouldn't be trying to hit Elise 3 mid-late game. You should be trying to work on different aspects of your comp. I think that Elise Chosen, Cultist Chosen, by the way, not Keeper Chosen. At least Cultist Chosen early, and then a quick scout to see if anybody else is playing Elise is the only situation in which you should push 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the Nidalee buff right here, damage per hex of her Javelin Toss, 10% increase. And then I'm also going to look at Teemo's Spore Cloud's dart damage, increasing by 100 at rank 1, 150 at rank 2, and then 300 at rank 3. These are really nice little buffs that affect Sharpshooters mainly. Nidalee kind of affects Warlords a little bit, but the main thing is here Sharpshooters. So previously you'd use Jinx and you would use Jhin as your carries for Sharpshooters, but I think based on these buffs, Nidalee should never be your carry, but I think that Teemo with mana items might be fire. Like, I think Teemo 3 with like a blue buff, or like a Shojin, or like a Rage Blade, something like that. I think that he actually could be quite good, but we'll have to wait and see. I haven't played Sharpshooters yet. Aphelios turrets now stop firing when Aphelios is disabled. They've absolutely gutted Aphelios. Never play him as your carry anymore. The only way that you should include Aphelios is if you're trying to play Hunter and you get him chosen, basically. Otherwise, I don't think that you should be using him at all. Now, the Jax buff is kind of like Like, Divine is so OP anyway that 10 total mana at the start doesn't really matter. Like, he's not your carry in Divine. He's just there to get you the trait, so this doesn't matter at all. Jarvan Dragon Strike damage, 175 stays the same at rank 1, 250 stays the same at rank 2, but have a look at this. 3-star Jarvan, his damage goes from 500 to 750. That's a 250 increase. It's a lot when you take into account that the only composition you play Jarvan in is Warlord. And so if you're playing Warlords correctly, that 750 damage actually ramps up to be quite a lot more than it says. Now, as we will look later, they've buffed ZZ Rot, they've buffed Locket, all stuff that, or all items rather, that scale with your star level. So I feel like Jarvan in Warlords is something that you should really be aiming for 3-star. I feel like a 3-star Jarvan will make Warlords really good. Not only that, it's not the damage that makes him insane, but it's also the fact that Locket and ZZ Rot scales with that. So I feel like a 3-star Jarvan with Locket, ZZ Rot is going to be a huge tank. I feel like that's going to be extremely, extremely good. Okay, moving on. Kennen, no changes at 1-star, no changes at 2-star, but again, his damage is increased by 450 at 3-star. I think that this is going to work really well with the ninja changes. Not only increasing his damage late game when you 3-star him, but also the ninja buff. I think a 4 ninja Kennen, 3 late game is going to absolutely tear up, one-shot the entire Rift. Veigar has been absolutely gutted. Not just because of this, but because of the Mystic buff too. Veigar spell power gain on kill, same at rank 1, been halved at rank 2 and 3. So Veigar, I wouldn't play him at all. Unplayable now, I would say. Ahri, however, she's had a 50 health nerf. She's had Spirit Bomb damage at level 2 and level 3 reduced by 50 and 1000 respectively. Don't go for Ahri 3. I think Ahri 2 is still fine, mainly because it's not Ahri's health and damage that kind of makes her good. Like, her ultimate being AoE is just good anyway. So I think these nerfs don't harm her as much as you might think. 50 health seems like a lot, but ideally you should be running an Ahri 2, and you should always have GA on her, and you should always have Dual Gauntlet or Ludens or something on her where she's one-shotting a board. Like, that's Ahri's thing, right? As soon as she ults, she one-shots things. And I think to make her more effective, I think you should be running GA Gauntlet, and I think you need to have mages now in this new patch. I think that she needs 2 ultimates going off for her to still be relevant. But yeah, it's not as bad as you'd think, even though the numbers tell you that. Now, with regards to these 3-star nerfs for Jhin, Riven, and Talon, I think that you should only really go for level 3 in these units if you have them as chosen. Now, ideally, you only really get 4 cost chosens very late in the game. If you're at this point and you haven't already picked a chosen, then you're probably inting. So don't 3-star these guys. I wouldn't say that you 3-star them at all. Unless you're uncontested, you have one of them chosen, and you have a Nikos or 2, I wouldn't bother. Like, the difference at level 3 is still going to be big, but I don't think it's going to be as insane as before. Like, look at that. 4,444% on Jhin to 1,234%. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's still a little bit silly, but they make it silly because you shouldn't really be hitting it in most of your games. Do you know what I mean? So maybe the 1% game you can go this. Tier 5, Azia's Warlord Divide damage. No change, except for level 3. Again, pointless. Kayn, his Reaping Slash damage decreased by 50 at rank 1. okay? And his shadow form damage buff 75% to 50. So they've pretty much done nothing with Kayn to red, which I think is okay. But with the shade nerf as well, I don't think that Kayn's going to be as good as the other 5 costs in terms of being a huge damage carry threat anymore. Lilia lifting Lullaby sleep duration 3.5, 3.58 to 3.48. So she's only had a buff of 0.5 seconds at rank 2. I think that's pointless. I still think she's garbage. Zillion rewind number of targets. They've basically buffed him at level 2, making him target 2 to 3. I think that's pretty cool. I think it's a net buff. They've reduced his heal amount when things get revived at rank 2 from 700 to 500. But as I said, I feel like that's a net buff. Hitting it on 3 targets is pretty damn insane. And just based on the fact that he's probably one of the more OP Mystic units regardless. So yeah, I think Zillion's fine. I think you can still go him. Alright, items. We'll go through these items quickly and then I'll get onto the compositions. I realize that the video's already gone on for quite a while right now. Chalice of Power bonus spell damage. I mean, it's okay, but you got to remember that Chalice builds out of Tear. And as I'll show you very soon, Tear is one of the most contested items this patch, and I think if you're using your Tear for Chalice, then you're kind of inting a little bit. Gargoyle Stoneplate bonus armor and MR per enemy, 12 to 15. It's okay. It's one of those things. If you're at Raptors and you have a Chain Vest and a Negatron Cloak, then make Gargoyles, I guess. Locket, this is where the huge buffs come in. My god, Locket buff is actually insane. These are one of the things that I read and tried, and I was like, god damn. This reminds me of Berserkers in, set 3. Or set 2, sorry. Absolutely insane. So, for a 1-star unit, it's 350, which is already nuts. 450 for a rank 2, but this is the one, 600 for a rank 3. So could you imagine that Jarvan that I was talking about before, giving all of his Warlord friends 600 shield? That's actually insane. And then, especially in a Warlord comp, if you play a Zero and Jarvan, that Keeper shield just adds to that Locket shield. So I think it's 175 at Keeper 2. So Jarvan should be giving the units either side of him roughly a shield of 775. Which is absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. So I'd say if you're playing Warlord, slam Locket. Luden's Echo. Pretty good offensive buffs for that. I haven't really had too much to play with Luden's, but I don't think that this is insane because it doesn't suit a lot of comps that are out at the moment. Maybe Sharpshooters. Maybe a Mage comp with Ahri, but other than that, nothing really too special. Quicksilver duration, 12 seconds to 10 seconds. Don't think that Quicksilver Sash is unplayable anymore because it's just simply not true. 2 seconds doesn't mean shit. That when it went from 15 to 12, it didn't mean shit, and even though it's gone from 12 to 10, still doesn't mean shit. It's still a really, really good item to put on your carry. Them being CC immune for the first 10 seconds is pretty irrelevant. Now the really cool thing is that if you build it on a Divine unit, you'll be CC, impervious to CC in the first 10 seconds, but then if you're playing Divine and you trigger your Divine post 10 seconds, it removes that CC anyway. So I think that QSS is fine. Now static shiv damage has gone up incredibly. This bonus damage going from 85 to 175, in my personal opinion, is a huge overtune. Now, the true damage that comes from static shiv is really, really good on champions with attack speed. And the current meta that we're looking at, it's incredible. It's one of those items that I'd say is probably in the top 2 items that you should slam. And again, this is the reason why Tear is becoming one of the most contested things off first carousel. And Bow is also one of the most contested things off first carousel. So we're kind of 50-50 split right now. Bow Tear off carousel first. If you get Rod and you get Chain, use that puppy for a Locket. Zeke's Herald bonus attack speed, 30 to 40%, absolutely insane. This is an item that's also very, very, very strong. If you have a BF sword, you should be using it for Zeke's. If you have a belt, you should be using it for Zeke's. But a belt you should also be using for, and it should be your first priority to use a belt for ZZ Rot. Now, ZZ Rot's been a bit of a meme item in TFT. until now. Now, ZZ Rock Portal now taunts all nearby enemies at the start of combat to the wearer for 2 seconds. ZZ Rock Portal construct damage has gone from 70 to 150. That's over double. Now, the reason that I say that ZZ Rot is absolutely insane right now is think about the composition that I've said is the strongest, Divine. Now, your carries in Divine need time to ascend, and they also need time to ramp up. Now, what ZZ Rot does is you slap that 3-star ZZ Rot on a tank, and you're taunting, you're buying your carries time. That is the biggest thing about ZZ Rot, is this taunt. When the champion that has the ZZ Rot dies, the ZZ Rot taunts again. So not only does it taunt at the start of combat, but when that champion dies, it taunts again. And if you're putting ZZ Rot on a 3-star unit, that is a huge construct that is actually very tanky and that deals quite a lot of damage, and it taunts. ZZ Rot is a huge value item this patch, and I think that regardless of the comp you're playing, slammable instantly. So with that considered, I think that first carousel, you should be going for bow. So I think that bow is like easily the best. So you should be going bow, then you should be going tier. Mainly because bow counts for ZZ Rot and static shiv, and then tier is obviously good for static shiv, and then also blue buff's pretty good this patch. So anyway, let me move on. I'm going to talk about 3 comps now that you should really play for 10.21. Now, I've done a little bit of testing, I've done a little bit of ranked, and this is what I feel is really strong at the moment. So first and foremost, Divine. Now, before I start, what I'll just tell you is that all of the high elo lobbies that I've been in, all of the streams that I have watched, there's at least 4 Divine players. So when I'm telling you that Divine's good, this isn't just my opinion, this is the opinion of pretty much all high elo TFT players for 10.21. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the late game, but 2 different styles of late game that you can do. So what usually you want to do is you want to rush static shiv with Divine. Now, the reason I say that is because Warwick carry at the moment is probably the strongest comp in the entire patch. Now, Warwick, because he has an inbuilt attack speed ultimate, it means that static shiv, that bonus damage, that true damage, is going to occur a hell of a lot more because of his attack speed steroid. Now, Warwick also with QSS means that he's going to consistently hit his ult, and he's also going to consistently hit the Divine Ascension. And so right now, Warwick Divine with static shiv is absolutely insane. So it's almost like his core. Warwick should always have static shiv and QSS, and then that third item that he should have can be any kind of tank item. What I've found to be most successful is Titan's Resolve, or something like GA, or even Hodge, something that's going to get him a bit of life back. Now, all of the other units, you can kind of mix and match. Your ideal 6 Divine should be non-inclusive of Wukong, but if you get the Wukong chosen, then you're going to have to include him as part of that 6. What I'd say is pretty key to this comp is Jax, because he pairs with Lee Sin for the duelist. And I would say Aurelia is incredibly important because she pairs up with Shen and Yone for that 3 adept power spike that we talked about before. 4 seconds of the enemy having their attack speed slowed. Now that's also important because Shen has 2 Mystic with Janna. So immediately by having Aurelia, Shen, and Janna, you have the Enlightened bonus, you have the Ninja bonus, you have the Mystic bonus, and you have the Adept bonus. And then basically putting in Yone at level 8 increases that bonus from Adept 2 to Adept 3. So with the CC that Yone brings, and Adept going from 2 to 3. I think that 8 could be a huge power spike for this comp. Like, it's already really, really good mid-game and even late game if you can get Warwick 2 with these items. Especially when you add Lee Sin in late game. There's just so many threats to this comp, and it's so good defensively due to the CC of Aurelia, due to the CC of Jax, due to the CC of Lee, even this fear off Warwick, the stun from Lux, the stun from Yone. Like, this is a comp that kind of has it all. Like, that 66% damage reduction when it ascends, insane. It has all the good makings of an insane comp. It's defensive, it's offensive, and it has plenty of CC. And as you can kind of see, you're kind of stacking the traits as well. Like, there's so many traits that you can do with this comp. Now, this is one version of the Divine carry that I think is probably the most popular one. Now, I offer you this alternative for carry because I know that heaps of people are going to be trying to get Warwick. And if you can only find Warwick 1, then this might be a good thing for you. So I think that Lee Sin is actually maybe just as good, might be even better late game. He can kick other people's Warwicks off the map. None of they have QSS, obviously, but hopefully once it runs out. Ideal items on him are mana items, so that obviously he can get more kicks off in a shorter space of time, especially before his ascension falls off. So I think that blue buff is probably the most important item that you can put on him. RFC makes it that he stays safe against other melee units, and it's harder for him to get CC'd. So I think that as a core, Lee Sin, you should be aiming for blue buff first, then RFC, and then your third item, again, doesn't really matter. It can be a tank item. What I prefer to do is have another mana item just so he can kick. That's what makes him good, right? So what I believe is the most important thing for him is to have mana items on him. Now, when you're playing lead carry, it's also really important to make sure that you don't leave your Jax out. That duelist bonus is actually quite important for Lee Sin. So make sure you keep Jax in. Now, you're probably wondering why I have a Sword of the Divine on Yone. This is just an option. If you get a spat, if you get a BF sword, you can make Divine Spat, put it on anybody, right? Like, you can put it on Yone. Also, really good target is a Set. I played a game with Divine Set, and that was just absolutely bonkers. A true damage Set ultimate, one-shots aboard. So if you get a Divine Spat, make it, because you're not really using BF sword for any of these items anyway. Like RFC, ZZ Rock, Blue Buff, Static Shiv, none of them use BF sword. So if you get a spat and a sword, make it instantly. Other BF sword uses, you could probably use a Zeeks on Aurelia or something. Let's talk about early game for this comp. Now, as I said for the items earlier, I think ZZ Rot is slammable. I think instantly put it on an Aurelia or a Jax, something that you can reliably 3-star, or even just 2-star, it's fine. This kind of ensures that you can win streak early, and I think that in this patch especially, win streaking early is very, very good. Now in 10-20, a lot of people were inting early to try and get items so that they could Aphelios carry, Zed carry, Veigar carry. But in 10.21, I think that it's worth win streaking early so that you can get first dibs on stuff like Aurelia, stuff like Warwick. I think that win streaking and pushing levels is a lot stronger this patch. Now, when you're doing this early, you don't have to have 4 Divine. You can even go into Duelists a little bit. But I would recommend putting your Warwick or your Lee Sin items on Fiora. Now, mainly being because Fiora is going to be the non-divine unit in your early game. Like, what you're going to see is you're going to see Wukong, you're going to see Jax, you're going to see Fiora, you're going to see Yasuo. So what I would do is I would ideally put all your items on Fiora, maybe bar the ZZ Rot. So if you have Shiv, if you have ZZ Rot, I would slam either, and I'd just put it on Fiora. With regards to RFC and blue buff, you might want to hold off on those, but definitely put items on Fiora so that you can try and win streak early. If you get a Fiora 2 and you have good items, then ride it all the way to the victory train. So that's the best comp that I think you should run. I think that if you have a bow or a tier off the starting carousel, as you can see, the items required for this comp is literally all bow tier. So if you start on the carousel as bow or tier, go this comp, force this comp. everybody in high elo is forcing this comp. There's no reason why you shouldn't be either. I think it's the most reliable way to climb. So run Divine. Now, in the case that you don't get bow or tier from the carousel and you're thinking, shit, what do I play now? I've come up with 2 compositions that include no units from the Divine or Duelist. Now, I think that's really important because if we were talking objectively about the strongest comps in the patch, then I might not be talking about these 2. But I think these 2 comps are things that play alongside Divine. So if you've got 4 or 5 Divine players in your lobby, you're going to be left with these units, and I think that it's quite easy to capitalize on. So the first one is Warlord. Now, with Warlord, I think that it's very important to get your Jarvan 3. I think without Jarvan 3, this comp can be pretty hard to get going. I think that you need Warlord Chosen to force it. I think that Warlord 3 extremely early is fine. I think buy Nidalees because Sharpshooter on Warlords is really good. So I think early, if you don't get bow or tier off carousel, stack Nidalee, buy Garen, buy Vi, buy J4, and try and push for Warlord. Because if you get that Warlord Chosen, you can start to ramp up quite a lot. I'd slam ZZ Rot and Jarvan straight away. Other items that you can put on him, as you'll see in the late game, are stuff like Locket, stuff like Zeke's. Ideally, in the early game, what you want to do is you want to put your carry items on Nidalee. Now, Nidalee should be part of your 6 Warlord comp in the early and mid game only. As soon as you find Azir, you should instantly sell Nidalee and put Azir on the board. Only put Nidalee in at level 2. Don't rank Nidalee up to level 3 and think that a level 3 Nidalee with items is going to carry you. Trust me, there is going to be an enemy Warwick that is going to shit all over your Nidalee, and it's just bad news bears. So what you need to do is you need to put the items on Nidalee early, and then once you push levels and you find Azir, sell Nidalee, put Azir in. He's a much better damage threat late. If you can find Azir too, and you have these items, absolutely insane. Now, as you can see by the items over here, it's a lot more diverse than the Divine, find tier, find bow. Like, there's a lot of things here that you can make work. There's a couple of belts, a couple of rods, a couple of swords, there's a chain vest in there, glove, Negatron cloak, pretty much all the items, right? So no matter what you get, I feel like you should be able to play Warlords effectively. Again, main things with this comp is make sure that you find Jarvan 3 or a Chosen for Warlord. Otherwise, forcing this and not hitting the stuff that you need is going to be a fast bottom 4. So again, it's a little bit more situational, but I think that Warlord can be really strong if you try and snowball it early to mid. Warlord 6 falls off late, so you have to have a plan in place for you to transition. And I think the perfect way to transition is chuck in Azir and even chuck in Lee Sin, because he has the duelist bonus with Xin. So, and it also denies a lot of the divine comps from reaching Lee as well. So when you're playing Warlords, instantly buy Lee, instantly buy Azir. Azir's your carry. Moving on, and this is the last composition that I'm going to talk about. So, this is for Ninja. Now, you might be surprised as why I've picked 4 Ninja as one of my compositions. Now, this is because I think a lot of these units aren't really going to be in hot contention past the early game. Now, I think some of these units will be in hot contention early game, and that's because of Cultist. Ninja is something that you only want to play 4 of late game. I don't think that you want to play or go for 4 Ninja early game. Now, the main way that you should play this early is by going for 3 Cultist. As I said when I was talking about the traits, 3 Cultist is insane, 2-star release, 2-star TF if you have it. Otherwise, your safest damage is going to be Pike and Evelyn. If you can find Kennen, you've got that ninja bonus, you've got that keeper bonus, and you've got a fat Galio coming in to buy you time. So Kennen is pretty much the most important part of having a strong like early game, especially because he is the one champion that you're going to carry from early to late. So the earlier you find Kennen, the better. Now, the two main items that you need to have on him are GA, because his ultimate can continue while GA falls off, from what I understand about GA. So I think that GA is super important on him. I think that Morello boosts his damage quite a lot, especially because he hits a broad range of units, much like Morgana. The sheer size of his ultimate means that he gets a lot of value from something like Morello. I think with the Ninja 4 buff, and I think with the Kennen 3 buff, I don't think you need to run 2 damage items on him, if you can help it. I think that something like a GA, a Morello, and either a mana item or a QSS would be really, really effective. Moving on to mid game, it's very, very reliant on you hitting 4 ninja. I think that as soon as you hit all 4 ninja units, immediately transition. As soon as you find a Shen, as soon as you find a Kali, as soon as you find Zed, as soon as you find Kennen, immediately transition. Because the idea is that you have this early game comp that's good early, but it might struggle in mid game. So as soon as you find your 4 ninja, do it. You should prioritize items on your Kennen, as I previously stated, but you kind of need a backup carry in case Kennen dies relatively early on, or he runs out of steam. What you don't want to happen with this comp is you don't want to have initial burst and then it falls off, and then you get out sustained by something like Divine or something like Vanguards. So what I would recommend is having a Kali as your secondary threat. Blue buff is insane on Akali. She just chain ults. It's the same type of stuff as Lee, where you probably want to have her at some kind of a long range. Her ultimate can be affected by RFC, Rapid Fire Cannon, sorry. So she can ult from range. So she'll dive on the enemy backline, and regardless of where the enemy units are, she will attack with RFC, and when she ultimates, she'll pretty much get all her mana back with blue buff. So she's a little ultimate fire rocket, basically. And with the ninja buff, she's pretty insane. So your carries for this composition should be Akali and Kennen. So as soon as you find those units, pick them up. Mid game, pair Pike with Akali so that you can get that assassin bonus. That's pretty important. The Elise you don't really need. That's just because he'd probably be playing it early game, and the keeper buff is quite nice to make sure that your Kennen stays alive mid game. Now, this is where Ninja struggles, and that's in the late game. So that's when people have their Warwicks, they have their Lee Sins, they have their 4 Dusk or 6 Dusk, or they have their Sharpshooters. How do you completely nuke the enemy team before they out-sustain you? Now, there are 2 ways you do this, and the number 1 most important way is to hit your 3 stars. Now, you'll notice that Kennen and Akali being the carries for this comp means that you have to 3-star 3-cost units. You can't reliably do that from level 1 to 7. You have to hit level 8 if you're going to 3-star these units. That's why in the late game, I've put 8 units in, because ideally you should be level 8 before you push for Akali 3 or Kennen 3. So what I would recommend is if you have chosen for Kennen or chosen for Akali, whether it be Assassin, whether it be Keeper, it doesn't matter. I think that if you're playing 4 Ninja, you should just go with whatever chosen they give you. 3-star Kennen, 3-star Akali, incredibly important. If you were going to prioritize one, Kennen 3-star, okay? Because that buff that he got at level 3 is 450 damage. It's absolutely huge. Obviously, the radius of his ultimate is bigger when he's 3-star as well. With regards to what you put in, you can put in Mystic. Cassio provides CC. Basically, anything that provides CC to keep your Kennen alive is quite good. That's why I've put in something like Aurelia Shen. That's a taunt, that's a disable. It also provides Adept for the first 2.5 seconds of combat. So, as you can see, you're stacking the traits, trying to get as much value out of your level 8 as possible. Adding Kayn, adding Talon to keep that assassin bonus, and yeah, I think that Ninja is one of those things where it's really, really, really hard to make work. But I think with everybody going Divine, everybody going Duelist and whatnot, I think that Ninja might be something that if you're uncontested in a lobby, you can top 2. I think that the buffs are that strong that Kennen and Nidalee can carry you. So this is just kind of my opinion on what I think might be available, given that everybody's going to be playing these 2 comps. So everyone's going to be playing Warwick probably. Not so many Lee Sins because he's dependent on hitting 8. But I don't know. Give it a go. Give Warlord a go. Give Ninja a go. Let me know in the comments how you got on. Other things that you might want to look at. Sharpshooters. Sharpshooters is very strong. Teemo Nidalee buff. Packs an absolute punch. You can probably kill Divine units before they ascend. So Sharpshooters is really good. Another worthy mention probably is 6 Elderwood still. 6 Elderwood with like Ashe. Like if you put Static Shiv on Ashe, she's insane. Yeah, 6 Elderwood with Ashe is pretty good. And then again, if you get insane Ahri items, like if you get Ludens, Dual Gauntlet, GA, you can play 3 Mage Ahri with 6 Elderwood, and that's still pretty good. But overall, all that this patch is, it's the same as any other patch. You just need to jump in, you need to play off your items, and you just need to play what feels good and try and make sure that you've got a transition from early to mid to late. That's probably one of the most important things to be good and then to make progress and to climb in this game, is to understand that it's okay to sell units and change your plan depending on each stage of the game. So if I was going to give you a tip for this patch, it's number 1, play Divine. Number 2, if you can't play Divine, be ready to play something else and know what that something else is so that you're not fumbling around and thinking, shit, I didn't find my Warwick, what do I do? You've got a plan, okay? So that's pretty much it from me. What I will be doing is I'm going to be making a cheeky little series. I'm going to be calling it In the Tank. What that's going to comprise of is pretty much a live commentary of me. I'm going to be playing a ranked TFT game in High Diamond Master Elo, and basically what I'll be doing is going through my thought process at each stage in the game to try and give you guys an idea about how I think about the game, how I approach each game, and every single decision that I make, every sell, every buy, I'm going to be telling you the logic behind what I'm doing, so you guys can kind of be in that TFT game with me, and you can kind of understand the decisions that I'm making and why I'm making them. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed, drop me a comment. How are you going in patch 10.21? Play Warwick before he gets nerfed. I'm 100% sure he's going to get nerfed next week. But anyway, that's it. Take it easy, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.